Greetings and welcome to Hexed Encountered. I'm Joe. In this video, we're going to be doing a first look at a game that is not a new game. And the reason I chose this one to do is because I noticed on Board Game Geek that it did not have any videos at all, which I found somewhat surprising. Now, I don't typically base my content choices upon what's on BGG and what isn't. In this case, I figured I might as well. It won't take very long, and someone might find it useful, both on my channel and I'll post it on the Geek. And if anybody wants to look at it there, they would then have the option to see what is in the box, because this game is still being sold. It is still available from Decision Games. So let's take a look at it. As you can see, this is a game on the Normandy Campaign, and it is titled Cobra. And a quick look at the back. It is, of course, a two-player game. It is somewhat solitaire friendly. You can see the hex scale is 2 miles. Each game turn is a day. Takes about 2 to 8 hours to play the game. Complexity is medium to high, so a little bit on the higher end of medium, I guess. We've got 2 full-size map sheets in here, 280 counters, a rules booklet, campaign analysis booklet, and 1 6-sided die. This game is, let's see, I believe this was designed, well, let's find out for sure. I'm going to pause a moment and remove the shrink, and then we'll see what's inside the box. Okay, let's open it up. First thing we see are some baggies and the single 6-sided die. All right, then we have our rule book, which runs 32 pages. Okay, sorry, I realized that you can't really see that. Some nice photography on there. We have the campaign booklet, basically the historical background. This is something that Decision does from time to time, and I always find it very interesting. You can see the commanders. There's a pretty cool map right there of what Europe looked like in June of 44, sorry about that. Woo! I don't know where I got 64 from, but there were the German commanders. That's pretty cool stuff. I won't go too deep on that. 1 counter sheet here. That's all. Yep, that's all there is 1 counter sheet. So you can see we've got our American forces in green, British forces in red. Then we have some Germans here. I'm not sure what the yellow is, but we have the Germans here in kind of the Feldgrau with the SS in black, as is kind of standard. They are double-sided, as you can see. Fairly standard counters there. We'll take a look inside and see the details on them. These would, of course, be American forces. Here we have some Germans. Looks like unit IDs on the left side. And I'm assuming hexes and or times they arrive at the top. You can see these are fairly varying in size. We've got some brigades, some corps, some regiments. All right, and there's that. And we have 2 maps that I will show at the end, because that's usually how I do things. Let's take a brief spin through the rules here. All right. So here are the rules. As I said, they run about 31, 32 pages. Typical case format, right? All right, so you got your intro. This is a strategic operational simulation of the Normandy Campaign, culminated in the encirclement of some 160,000 German troops in the Falaise pocket. This edition allows players to simulate the entire campaign, the first half, or the breakout operation in the later stages of the campaign. Rules have been updated from Strategy and Tactics magazine number 251 and include all known errata. So there you go. All right, so You got map A and map B, what's on there. So you can see they've got you may have noticed no player aid cards. The CRT and the TEC, the combat result table and terrain effects chart, terrain key, they're all on map A, along with the turn record track and the US, British, and German supply points track, weather table. And then you've got on B, you've got the destroyed boxes, again, a CRT, well, destroyed and withdrawn boxes for both sides, or destroyed boxes for both sides. Infantry and panzer replacement for the Germans, reinforcement schedule, scatter diagram, sequence of play, terrain effects chart, terrain key, turn record track, victory point track, and weather track. So some of them obviously are on both, probably because you have some scenarios that only use one or the other of the maps. Playing pieces, so you've got your front side full strength, back is reduced strength. How do you read the units? As I said, on the left, you've got the historical identity number of the units. Divisions have only one number, while each regiment has its regimental ID and a number. That designates the division to which it belongs, if any. The number to the right of the slash is the number of the division. The term British is extended to include all Canadian and Polish units. I was going to say it's probably more Commonwealth. Couple notes on errata here. Then you've got the unit types, the unit sizes, which is pretty typical. Over here, you've got your key to what the counters are. The symbology on the counters indicates. You have your scenario setup or game turn arrival, as I suspected, unit size, unit type there in the middle, unit ID, combat strength is your first number on the bottom, and the movement allowance is the second. And then under the headquarters unit, you've got the same thing with the unit ID and the setup info. It's command radius in parentheses and its movement allowance. So that seems pretty standard. The game scale, each game turn equivalent to 3 days. Each hex represents a distance across of 2 miles. The entire game, entire campaign begins on turn 1 and ends on game turn 27. Battle of the Build-Up is game turn 1 through 14, and Cobra scenario is 15 through 27. And you have an alternate Cobra as well. Same rules and victory conditions as standard Cobra. Rounding is up unless specified otherwise. Got setup information here. Then we have our sequence of play. So different for the Germans and the Allies. The Germans begin with a weather and their supply phase, replacement, movement phase, initial movement phase, I should say, combat and mechanized movement phase. That's something we've run into before in terms of the split movements where you have an initial movement and then a mechanized movement. And it's the same over the Allies is only slightly different. Supply, replacements, initial movement, combat, mechanized movement, and then the game turn interface. So the only real difference, I believe, is the weather. And the interphase is listed at the end of the Allied turn. Okay, now there is a thing for the landing phase as well if you wanted to play the entire campaign and do the actual landings on D-Day. Movement rules. Movement's calculated in terms of movement points. It expends 1 movement point of its total movement allowance for each clear terrain hex it enters. Pretty standard. Some other for each clear terrain, if I did not say that. Other terrain types cost more than 1 movement point. And that's summarized on the terrain effects chart as you would expect. You can't enter a hex containing an enemy unit unless it only is an HQ unit, in which case HQ displacement occurs. Units may only move during friendly movement phases. Advances and retreats or combat displacements do not require expenditure of MP and are not considered movement for purposes of the rule. You must stop on entering an enemy zone of control. Once a unit has moved into an EZOC, it may not be moved out of it during that movement phase. A unit that begins a movement phase in an EZOC may leave it by disengaging, which is Rule 5.5. Then we have some examples here to kind of illustrate how all that works. We've got rules for mechanized units. I won't go over everything here. Effects of weather and Allied air power on German movement. Overrun rules. So you do have the ability to do overruns. Then, and examples, of course, failed overruns. Then you have the disengagement rule that we just mentioned, special terrain rules, American trucks, additional movement, Allied Army boundary, which limits the movement of U.S. units into the British area and vice versa. Changing the Allied Army boundary, so you have the option to move it 1 hex east or west or not as desired by the Allied player. Okay. Stacking rules, generally no limit on the number of units, except during retreat after combat. At the end of any movement phase and at all times during any combat phase, neither player may generally have more than 1 division in a hex. For stacking purposes, a division is defined as any 1 division unit, any 3 regiments or brigade-sized units, any 2 British or Canadian brigades. Exception, the 3 British brigades that belong to the 6th British Division may stack together. You've got exemptions for HQs. 1 British or Canadian Independent Armored Brigade may stack for free with a British Canadian Infantry Division. 1 U.S. Armored Cavalry Regiment or the 2-5 Ranger Unit may also stack for free with any U.S. Division, mechanized or not. Information markers do not count, as they really never do. You've got divisional integrity, so that is fairly standard. They have units that benefit from it, German Panzer and Panzer Grenadiers, U.S. Armored Divisions, U.S. Truck Mechanized Infantry, and British Armored Divisions. If all the constituent units of any qualifying divisions occupy a single hex in supply, that division has divisional integrity. Only units with divisional integrity may conduct overruns. Units with divisional integrity are doubled in combat strength for attack and defense, and also for defense against overruns. So that's pretty cool. There's a couple other rules. As I said, I don't want to get into everything. Here's zones of control. Seems pretty standard. Don't extend across rivers, major rivers, or all sea hexes. Don't extend into city hexes of Caen or Cherbourg, or fortress hexes. There's no additional effect for having more than 1 unit entering its ZOC exerting its ZOC into a given hex. Fairly straightforward stuff. Combat. Attacking is voluntary. You're not compelled. To attack any enemy occupied hex can be attacked by as many units as may be brought to bear in the 6 adjacent hexes. No unit may attack more than once per combat phase, and no unit can be attacked more than once per combat phase. American units may participate in attacks with French units and vice versa. French and American units may not cooperate in attacks with the Canadians, the British, or the Polish. British units may participate in attacks with Canadian or Polish units and vice versa. And the other part of that, of course, the Commonwealth and the Polish units may not cooperate in attacks with Americans and or French. Overruns are considered movement. Okay, so they can, I guess, move together maybe. Multiple unit and multi-hex. So we've got some of that as available as well. Combat benefits, what you can get to boost yourself, I suppose. The Tiger Tank battalions have special rules: terrain, headquarter effects, air and naval effects, supply and supply point effects, resolution, steps for the units. Each of the units in the game has a number of strength levels called steps. Results on the CRT are expressed in terms of step losses or hexes retreated. In most cases, you have the option of either retreating or standing and taking step losses. Again, fairly standard stuff from Decision, which kind of comes down the line from SPI. Combat results, and you've got your retreat rules, your advance after combat rules, headquarters and what they do, supply rules, lines of supply. So pretty standard. It looks like it needs to be no longer than 12 hexes, traced from unit to a supply source. It cannot cross units, enemy units, or ZOC, and it must be traced to an owning player supply source. Fairly straightforward. German and Allied supplies, effects of being out of supply points, command limits, accrual of supply points. So you have a track for that. as well as for both sides. And supply point expenditure, allied command limits, replacement rules, reinforcement rules. Allied air power and carpet bombing. Nice B-17 right there. Committing air points, effects of air points, carpet bombing. Allied naval support, special rules, French unreliability, and Paris. 15th Army release and Hitler. The 2nd Fallschirmjäger Division and Brest. How to win? Germans get points for Allied units elimination, Allied failure to exit units, and for each full division, all regiments undestroyed in supply west of map A's 3900 hex row. So stuff you would expect for them to get points for. The Allies get victory for eliminating German units or putting them out of supply and exiting mechanized units, maximum of 4 divisions through the west edge of the map, hexes 0123 through 0134 on or before game turn 20. Then it goes down from there for later exits. And you've got Battle of the Build-Up victory points, victory determination for marginal victories, and so on. The scenarios, so we have Cobra, alternate Cobra, and that has a list of where the units start for the Germans, the US, and the British. Patton. Campaign game. The landing phase and how that works. You've got the landings and airborne scatter, airborne step loss, beach defense. So you can really do the entire Normandy campaign here. Beach abandoned, additional movements, Allied withdrawal, Cherbourg, supply sources, stacking, how all that stuff works. You've got some variant counters, I suppose that says, and then you've got your notes here. This was let's see, the Decision Games Edition developer and researcher, Joe Youst. Original SPI game design from Brad Hessel. So I didn't want to mistakenly credit somebody. I wanted to make sure that we got the original SPI designer in here. And I didn't look it up before I did the video. So this way, and we have the sequence of play here on the back. This way we give credit where credit is due. Now I am going to pause a moment and we'll bust out the maps so you can see it. I'll probably do them separately because we don't really have the table space available at the moment to put them all out in their entirety. So we will take them bit by bit. Okay, so this is map A. I think. I thought I saw map A somewhere on here. But anyway, this is the northern map. This might be map B, actually. Yeah, because of these boxes. So a lot of tracks, a lot of information on here. You can see how all of the units' arrival for reinforcement is clearly marked on this map sheet. So you can see when they arrive and what the unit actually looks like. That's thumbs up because it makes it really easy to find the right unit and make sure you get them out and deployed. We have destroyed boxes for the Allies over here and the withdrawn units as well. The Germans are on the other end right there, as you can see. We've got down towards the bottom, we've got the actual map itself. So you can see the peninsula and the beaches, which run across here, right? So you've got Utah, Omaha, Gold, Juneau, and Sword going right, west to east. Here's our scatter diagram for the airborne. This is map B. North, 2 miles across the hex. And then over here on this end, I can take a quick look at this. I'm just going to fold it over. You've got your terrain effects chart, so you can see that, as well as your combat result table, our terrain key, and all the effects and everything for all of this stuff. So a lot of stuff packed on the map, but Very, very effective, I think. Good looking map, in my opinion. Now here is map A. So this is further south. And this would be kind of more of your main Cobra map. Okay, so it also has, as we just saw, your terrain effects chart, terrain key, terrain effects chart, your turn record track down here at the bottom. Your CRT is here. Then looking at the map itself, we'll start at the northern end. So this is just south of what we just saw. So this is the way up into the peninsula. We've got Carentan here, Bayeux, Saint-Lô, Caen, and so on. And I know I'm butchering the names, and I apologize. Granville, Villedieu, and so on. So you can see all of the terrain. This is all bocage, so that is rough sledding, to be sure. And there's Avranches down here, Pontorson, Domfront, Falaise is off to the side. If we spin it this way, you can see some of the stuff as we head to the east. Lisieux right there. And then down in the very bottom in the corner, we have Alencon over here. So that is the map here for the game. Cobra, the Normandy Campaign from Decision Games, originally an SPI game designed by Brad Hessel. And this one was kind of redeveloped by Joe Youst. So that is going to do it. Appreciate you guys watching. Thank you as always. If you have comments or questions or anything else that you want to put into words, you can put it in the comment section. I'll do my best to reply to everything. I'd ask that you consider liking, sharing, hyping, or if you're not a subscriber, maybe consider a subscription. Help support the channel. That would be awesome and greatly appreciated. Thank you to all my subscribers. I do always make a point to thank you guys for your subscription to the channel. I'd also like to give a special shout out to my channel members. There are now 10 of them. They are in two groups, Hexed and Countered. Hexed is the lower tier, Countered is the higher tier. If you want more information on that, you can click the join button to get specifics. But that is going to do it for now. Thank you again for watching. I'm Joe. This is Hexed and Countered. And until next time, as always, happy gaming.